people will buy anything. That doesn't mean you should do it. They will buy anything.
Hello there, everyone. So, I've mentioned before that I used to be really big into anime and manga. Not so much anymore, but when I was a teenager, I used to just come home from school and I would just watch anime and read manga for like 3 or 4 hours a day, every day after that. And that was just my life for like 2 years. And when I was a teenager, there was one manga that one of my friends tried to get me into called Bakuman, and it was written by the same people who made Death Note.
I'll take a potato chip and eat it.
So I thought it sounded interesting. It was a manga about creating manga and about the manga industry and what it's like. And I just never got around to it until recently, and I thought it was pretty good.
This is the introduction song. It's not very good, but it's not too long.
Say, do you like this hoodie I'm wearing? You can buy it in my merch store down below. I got this as well as other t-shirts and hats and stuff. Go check that out. Yeah, Bakuman is pretty good. It's like a behind-the-scenes look into how the manga industry, or more specifically Shonen Jump, which is the magazine that has run a lot of the biggest manga ever, and just how that works. I told that anecdote at the beginning for a couple of reasons. Number one, I just think it's a fun way to segue into this, but number two, I think it is important to note that I am coming at this manga from the perspective of an older person, and it wasn't really aimed at someone my age. You know, if I had read it when I was around 15 or 16, I might feel very differently about it than I do now. Because if I read it back then, I might have thought it was the best thing ever, whereas now I just look at it and go, yeah, it's pretty good. And there are certain parts of it that I know for a fact I feel about differently now than I would have back then, just because I'm older and have more life experience and have matured since I was a teenager. But I just think we should all keep that in mind as we go forward. So Bakuman begins with two students that meet in school, and they're just about to finish middle school and go into high school. One of them is named Moritaka, the other one is named Akechi. Wait, fuck. We're just calling him Takagi, okay? Japanese foreign names are a little weird to me to begin with, but also for some reason, whenever something is in visual form, like a manga or a TV show or something, I have a harder time remembering character names than when it's written out for me. So we're just calling him Takagi. Anyways, Moritaka is a very good artist, like he draws a lot, and Takagi is a writer, so they decide, hey, let's team up, I'll write the manga, you draw it, and we're gonna get serialized. And you may think, based on that, that's going to be their big overall goal, and that the series will like end with them getting serialized. But no, actually, they get a manga published in Jump pretty early on, actually, and the majority of the series is really just about the hardships that come with that, and again, just how the industry works. Now, I should also mention that Moritaka has a crush on another girl that he's going to school with, and now that, again, they're finishing middle school and she's going to go off to a different school, and he just promises her, when he finds out her dream is to become a voice actress, he just promises her, my manga is going to get made into an anime, and then I want you to be the voice of the main heroine, and then we can get married.
Oh, fuck off!
And that's kind of where their relationship stays until the very end. I'll talk a bit more about that later. Now, I do need to go into very heavy spoilers to really talk about what I liked and disliked about Bakuman, so my brief non-spoiler-free thoughts are going to be that the whole series is about 170 chapters, which is not that long for a weekly shonen manga. I mean, Naruto went for like 700, and granted, that's a particularly long one, but like, that's what a long-running shonen series can often go for, whereas only going for a little over 3 years, or 3.5 years, is not that crazy, actually, and it doesn't take that long to read. But anyways, the point I'm getting at is, the first 50-ish chapters, so a little bit less than 1/3 of the story, I think is really solid. I was really getting into it. I was hyped to see these guys follow their dreams. I liked watching them grow and improve and become better at their craft. And then the last third is also pretty good because the authors introduce some new stuff, let's say, some new elements into the story, which do add a little bit of a morally gray quality to some things, and the characters really have to stop and ask themselves, like, well, okay, what am I even doing? What does it mean to be a mangaka?
That's good.
Where Bakuman really fails is the middle third, because there's not a whole lot of plot to this series, right? Like, there's not any big twists about, oh, this is the real villain or anything like that. Hell, there's not even really an antagonist here. There's some minor antagonists spread throughout, but overall, it really is just these guys trying to get better at their craft and trying to create something that the rest of the world likes. So in the middle third, there's nothing really new there. It's kind of just them going, how can we make a good manga that people will like? Well, what if we did this? That's a good idea. Let's try that. And then they make it, and then they go, wow, we made a manga that people like, and it seems to be more popular. And they do go through a couple of ups and downs with regards to, like, again, their careers, but overall, it's just, there's just not that much interesting happening, which means that the story has to rely entirely on interpersonal relationship drama, which is not very good in Bakuman. I'll just say that right now. It's not very good.
Why? Why?
I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. And in a weird way, like, okay, so this manga takes place over a long period of time. It takes place over about 8.5 years. So the characters start off, they're 14, and by the end, they're in their early 20s. Like, they're full-on grown adults by that point. They're still young, but they are grown-ass adults. And the characters aren't static. Like, they do develop and change over time, yes, but they also never really grow up. You know, it doesn't feel like these are people in their early 20s. It feels like they are 14-year-olds that still live alone and sometimes get married. I know that sounds weird, and it's kind of hard to explain, but basically, that's one of my issues with manga in general, which is why I don't really read it that much, is that a lot of them just act way too over the top. They act really selfish and unprofessional a lot of the time, and the story kind of rewards them for doing that. And I just didn't like that. Like, there are points early on where Moritaka is acting like really selfish and really childish and unprofessional, and I was getting frustrated with him, but then I remembered, well, like, yeah, he's 16, he's supposed to be a little bit retarded. Like, yeah, that's what you expect from people that age.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
But then he, again, is in his 20s and he's still acting like that, and I'm realizing, okay, maybe that wasn't done deliberately to make some sort of point on the part of the authors. Maybe they're, like, really trying to appeal to the audience, or maybe they think that's just how you're supposed to act. I'm not sure, but it becomes really weird, and I just didn't like it. The best example of this is pretty early on. The characters get published, they get serialized in Shonen Jump, and so they have a new weekly series going, and being a mangaka is really hard work. I mean, those guys work 80, 90-hour weeks, and when you are splitting the work among two people, it's not as bad, but they're still working a lot, and he's still in school at the time. But anyways, he winds up going to the hospital for some health issues. It's nothing too major, but he has to stay there for a couple of months to get bed rest. And so the editor-in-chief of Shonen Jump comes up to him and says, hey man, we're just going to put you on hold for a couple of months, but just get better, and then come back and we'll pick up where we left off. And then Moritaka and the rest of the characters are all like, no, we will not do that. You will not. And again, this guy's their boss, but they're still being, like, really rude and in his face about this, and they say, no, you will not tell me when I can and can't draw. I'm going to keep doing it, and you're going to keep publishing my stuff. And they go back and forth on this for a while, and he even tries to tell them, like, guys, you're not getting canceled. We want you to be better. And then the other mangakas there also threaten to go on strike.
You idiot. You're honestly an idiot. I don't know what's wrong with you.
This whole arc was really, really weird to me, because the final message of it seems to be, no, you should work yourself into an early grave. Work yourself to death. I don't know, it's weird, and it's not, maybe they intended it in a way where it's meant to be like, you should never ever give up on your dreams, you should always work hard, but in a country like Japan, where death from overwork is a depressingly common thing that really does happen, it's just a weird message to try and send. And again, maybe that wasn't how they intended it, but that's how it came across to me. And the two leads act that way in other situations as well. Like, they act selfishly, and they ask for, like, special exceptions to the rules and stuff, and oftentimes they get what they want, which, I don't know, if that happened, like, once, I'd be fine with it, but I honestly think that the story would have grabbed me a bit more and just been a bit better if they eventually had to back down and accept, like, okay, I can't get everything I want all the time.
Enough!
So that was a bit frustrating to deal with. Like, they really don't feel like adults at the end, even though, again, minor spoiler here, Takagi straight up gets married partway through, and that's treated as like an afterthought. But like, again, they're adults that live on their own and pay their own bills and everything, but they still act this way. It's just odd, and it did take me out of the story at a few points. Hello everybody, it's Editor James here. I'm talking over some corrupted footage, which is unfortunate because this is the part where I talk about my favorite character, Eiji Nizuma. So Eiji is very much the rival to the two main leads, but the way it's handled is really interesting and a lot better done than in most other shonen manga that I've read. Because when they first introduce him, he's built up a lot. Like, he is supposed to be this absolute prodigy. He's around the same age as the other two characters, and he also gets into the manga creation industry around the same time. And he's supposed to be an absolute prodigy. He's an amazing artist, an amazing writer. Everybody loves his work so much. And when they first introduce him and he first joins Shonen Jump, he actually makes a deal with the editor-in-chief that if he ever becomes the most popular manga in Shonen Jump, then he will have the right to end or cancel one manga that he doesn't like. So they introduce this guy and make him seem like he's not only a huge weirdo, but he's also just extremely arrogant. And so you think when he meets up with the main characters, he's going to be some sort of antagonist to them and they're going to hate each other. But the first time they meet, a couple chapters after he's introduced, is when he says, "Hey, I know you guys. I've seen your work. I've read it. It's really good." And that seems to disarm the leads, but it also disarms the audience because you realize, oh, this guy's actually pretty chill. Like, yeah, he's arrogant, but he's also very, very good at what he does, so it's kind of understandable that he'd be so arrogant. And he just really loves manga and appreciates it as an art form, and he wants to get better. He wants to be the best that he possibly can. Like, at the beginning, when he's first introduced, he also acts very unprofessionally a lot, and he just kind of gets away with it because he's, you know, an absolute genius at his craft. But then over time, he does have to change, and he does eventually start going, okay, yeah, I should act a bit more professionally, I should take more people's advice, because he understands that even if you're a genius, you have to do that in order to get better. So the rivalry between Nizuma and the leads is entirely professional, and it's very, very friendly. Like, those guys are all friends and colleagues and coworkers while also wanting to outdo each other. And that's something you used to see in manga a lot in the 90s. I don't know if it's as common with more recent stuff. Like, you would see people who, they were rivals, yeah, but they were also the best of friends while doing it. Like Yusuke and I think his name is Kuwabara? Oh, man, I know I could look that up, but I'm not going to. Kuwabara from Yu Yu Hakusho, like, they were rivals, yes, but they were also best friends. And Nizuma and the leads in Bakuman were reminiscent of that, and I really liked it. And I won't give it away here, but like I said earlier, Nizuma does make a deal so that if his manga becomes the most popular one in Jump, he'll get to cancel one manga of his choice. And the way that's handled, it does come back up in the last couple chapters of the series, and the way it's handled is actually really good because, again, when Nizuma first makes that deal, it makes him seem like an arrogant asshole, and then he brings it up again later, and you're thinking, oh, is this guy gonna, like, betray one of his friends or something? But the way it's handled is actually very, very good. It makes it clear that whatever other flaws Nizuma has, he really is just an artist. He really just loves manga as an art form, and he wants to get better at it, and he wants to just be the best he can be. And it's a weirdly inspiring thing, you know? So while Eiji Nizuma is largely a side character, he is my favorite character in Bakuman. And that's about all I have to say there. I'll go back to the regular video now. I think that's about it for the non-spoiler stuff. I like Bakuman, and if you haven't read it by this point, I guess go check it out and then watch the rest of this video.
We tried, we failed, and we're moving on.
So like I said, there's not a whole lot of plot here, but there are just some things that I know people wouldn't want spoiled for them, so that's why I'm doing this as a separate section and why I warned people. So the final stretch of this manga is the characters trying to get a manga that will be made into an anime, because they have a fairly successful manga that's running for a big chunk of this series. It's called Perfect Crime Party, or PCP for short, which does occasionally lead to some funny bits of dialogue where they say stuff like, "Oh, young kids really love PCP." Like that is kind of amusing, but completely unintentional. But anyways, they have that going, and that's a pretty good, big, successful manga, but they can't have it made into an anime because parents might think that it will make their kids misbehave. It's kind of weird and silly, but that sort of thing does happen in real life, so I don't find it hard to believe. So then they decide, okay, let's make another manga called Reversey, and all of the manga they make, we only hear about in like vague terms, by the way. Like we hear broad strokes about what the plot is like, and we hear broad strokes about what they're trying to do with it. Like, oh, let's make it a little more lighthearted, or no, let's make it a little more dark and serious, and just things like that. But we don't know a whole lot about it. We mostly just know the names. But anyways, they make Reversey, and they actually finish off Reversey. It's a pretty short series. I think they say it lasts like less than 50 chapters, so less than a year. But that one does get made into an anime, and then Moritaka's girlfriend, I'm going to put quotes around the word girlfriend here because I don't know what to describe that stupid relationship as. But it gets made into an anime, and then she gets cast in it, and then Moritaka goes up to her and says, "Will you marry me?" And then they kiss for the first time, and then it ends. And I get that this is the goal that a lot of this manga was working towards, but it's just stupid. Because again, like, I can buy a 14-year-old boy saying something over the top, like, "I'm gonna get my stuff made into an anime, and then you're gonna get cast in it, and then I'm gonna marry you." Like, that's corny and stupid, but I can see a 14-year-old boy saying some shit like that. But then actually holding to it is weird. Because like, he's still in contact with this girl, like they email each other some, but they live far apart from each other, so they don't really see each other that much. And I just kept thinking, especially once I realized like these are like grown adult characters, I was like, dude, you know you can just call her. You can just say, "Hey, want to get coffee later?"
What the hell did you just say?
You can just start a relationship like that, and then the two of you can support one another while you both work on your dreams. Like, wouldn't that be kind of nice? Just a thought. In fact, yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, they probably could have just had it so that his girlfriend had to like move away to another city or something, and she's like, "Hey, I do like you, but we're not going to be able to see each other face to face, so let's not start anything serious." But then they just stay pen pals and they still talk to each other, and then a couple of years later they can start up an actual relationship. And maybe the end would be like her saying, "Hey, I'm moving back to Tokyo now. Want to go get coffee or something?" Like, you know, it could end like that. And it would not only be more realistic, but it would probably be sweeter. And like I said a few minutes ago, Takagi straight up gets married partway through this. Like, he has a girlfriend when they're in high school, when they're teenagers, and the two of them stick together for years and have like an actual serious relationship, and then they get married and move in together. And meanwhile, Moritaka is just sort of, I don't know, pining after a girl that he liked when he was in middle school and has barely seen since then. Like, the whole thing is just weird. A lot of, like I was saying earlier, the interpersonal drama in the middle third is just not that good. And it's, again, mostly because the characters just act really weird. Like, they never grow up, and they just get really over the top with every single reaction to everything. And honestly, that's a big part of why I just don't like not only anime and manga anymore, but I also just have trouble getting into a lot of Japanese film and TV, because the acting is just so bad and so over the top that I cannot take anything seriously. Even stuff like Battle Royale, which, like, I can kind of get into that movie in some ways, but every time one of the characters does anything, they have to go like, "Gah! Oh no!" And it's just like, I cannot take this shit seriously, man. Like, that's not how people act. And I have found that, at least in the realm of manga, like I said, I used to read so much of that shit. I've read so many manga over the years, but the ones that have stuck with me and didn't just go like in one ear and out the other, the ones that have stuck with me over the years have been ones that fall on one end of that spectrum or the other. On one end of the spectrum, we have stuff like, I think One Piece is a pretty good example, where yes, the characters do act really silly and over the top all the time, but the rest of the story is also really silly and over the top. Like, the world of One Piece is really weird and silly and over the top. The story is really weird and silly and over the top. So it does kind of fit for the characters to act ridiculous sometimes, or all the time, and there's a consistent tone to it. Like, they're cartoon characters, and they act like cartoon characters. It works. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have stuff that is much more grounded and realistic, like, I think Berserk is a good example. Like, yeah, the characters are dealing with a lot of big supernatural threats and world destruction causing monsters and things, but they react to it in a pretty normal way, and their relationships work in a, for the most part at least, pretty normal human way. So I can get into those characters and I can remember them and like them a lot, same with the guys on the other end of the spectrum. But Bakuman falls into a difficult spot because the world it takes place in is just our world. Like, they work in a corporate business environment, which acts like a corporate business environment, but the characters just act like freaking cartoons. They act like caricatures of caricatures. And so a lot of the drama and arguments that characters have just doesn't work that well for me. And it kills a lot of the comedy, too. Like, there are a couple of funny moments in here, a couple of good gags in here, but it all gets kind of swept away by the characters just reacting like, "Ah!" to literally everything. You know, so instead of there being something weird or crazy where it would make sense for them to act that way, they act that way for everything, and so it doesn't stand out that much. Now, I said the character drama's bad, and that's true for the most part, but there are exceptions. Like, sometimes it works pretty well. For example, there's one character named Nakai who, like, I don't know what the general consensus on this guy is in the Bakuman fan base, but I would just like to remind you I'm coming at this from the perspective of an older person. So there are parts of that guy that I identify with, maybe a bit too much. But basically, he's a guy who came to Tokyo and tried to make it as a mangaka, and he's like in his 30s now, so he's been at this for a while. And he's just never been able to get his own series going. He's just stuck working as an assistant to other mangaka. And he's also, like, single, so he's pretty lonely. And he just feels like he's spinning his wheels. He feels like he's fallen into a rut in his life, and, like, his dreams aren't working out, and he's not sure what to do next. And then he starts working with a woman mangaka named Aoki, and, like, their working relationship seems to be going well for a while, but then she asks him, like, after one of her series finishes, she asks him, "Hey, can you come and be my assistant and help me with my next one?" And he says, like, "Well, no, I'll only do it if you'll be my girlfriend." And then she slaps him and tells him to fuck off, which, yeah, that's an appropriate reaction.
You need to get the fuck away from me right now.
And then Nakai just kind of leaves and, like, gives up on his dreams entirely and goes back home. And at first I thought that would be the last we ever saw of him, but no, he does come back later, and he's even more fat and pathetic and unemployed, because, yeah, how do I put this? Like, when you feel like you've been trying to pursue some sort of dream for a long time, and you haven't made any progress, and you feel like it's never going to work out for you, and also you're just lonely and dealing with feelings of inadequacy coming from that, that can make you depressed, to say the least, but it can also make you act in ways that you would have found completely unthinkable before. Like, this sort of shit can rot your soul, and when it rots your soul, yes, it makes you sad and irritable, but it can also rot your sense of morality. I'm trying to explain this without going into too much detail, but basically, as you get older, you will see it in the people around you. And yeah, Nakai is pathetic, and he does mistreat people, and he does a couple of gross things, but also in the last chunk of the story, when we see him again, it's also clear that the person that we liked, like the old friend of theirs, is still under there somewhere, and he can still be brought out, at least in certain situations, and maybe he can be redeemed. And granted, the manga does end without him really finishing his arc, which sounds like a criticism, but honestly, that's just how life works sometimes. But what I'm saying is, all the drama around him, while yeah, it is kind of depressingly realistic, it works because it's depressingly realistic, so I did like that. Overall, when I finished Bakuman, I found myself thinking that yes, a lot of it is silly and childish, and it could have been handled in a better way. It could have been tweaked, and just, I don't know. I saw a lot of things to complain about, but overall my feeling about it was that it seemed to be saying that if you follow your dreams and you actually work at it and work hard, then you can make it in a competitive industry. And that's a common thing you see in shonen manga, but I think it's handled here a lot better here than it is in other stuff, because a lot of times in shonen manga, their dream is to just be the greatest fighter of all time, and it'll show them doing like 10,000 push-ups per day and training like 20 hours a day and completely neglecting all aspects of their lives outside of trying to be the greatest battle fighter that has ever existed. And then because of that, and also because they have the correct ancestry, that's how it always goes, they get super special powers, and then by the time they're 16, they're the most powerful dude in the universe. Which, like, I get the message they're trying to send there is still work hard and you'll succeed, but I don't think it works super well in that way of doing it. Whereas in Bakuman, the characters do, again, they work hard, but they work hard in a realistic way. You know, they spend long nights at the office drawing and writing, but they don't do that every night. They do still have friends and family outside that, and they don't kill themselves through overwork. They do put some manga out that are successful, but they also fail. Like their initial series that they put out and gets serialized does get canceled earlier than they wanted it to get canceled, and that's unfortunate, but it's a stepping stone to their next one, which is a bigger hit. And that one has to go through some changes, and they have to figure out how to adjust it to not only make the audience like it more and keep themselves employed, but they also have to like just grow and change with their own craft. So in that regard, Bakuman felt like it was not only pushing a good message, but it left me feeling hopeful. You know, it left me feeling like, yeah, if I really set my mind to something and work at it, then even in a competitive industry, I can still find some level of success, and I am lapping everyone else who is just sitting there thinking, wouldn't it be cool to do that? So, yeah, I don't know, Bakuman, pretty good. That's about all. Like the video, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. Check out my merch store. All that other stuff I'm supposed to say. Have a nice day. Goodbye. Hello, and thank you to everybody who watched this far. These names you see scrolling by on screen right now, these are my patrons. My $10 and up patrons are 3 Cat Day, Arthur D. Gonzalez Martin, Carolina Clay, Chaotic Entity 1, Chris Goldap, Hey It's Haley, Lexi Delorme, Lord Tiebreaker, Psych XS, Toa Michael, and Una Park. Them, along with everybody else here, I don't have the words to express how grateful I am. I don't think I could do this without them. If you want to get your name on here, as well as get access to other perks like exclusive videos or getting early access to my normal videos, then consider donating or becoming a YouTube channel member. That works too. If you don't feel like doing that, you can also check out my merch store or my Cameo page, or just like the video, comment on it, and subscribe. That works as well. I guess I'm still talking. Not sure why. What are you doing later? Nah, just kidding. Bye.